Right, so I'm Paul Weiss. I'm going to tell you a story. It's quite good because I haven't made it up and I haven't nicked it off anybody for a start. And a lot of these keynote speakers are, let's just say, full of crap. So I started off when I was 14, sort of mixing in the wrong crowds, if you like. Got into not heavy drugs, but pot smoking, a bit of LSD when I was younger, and I was going down a pretty slippery slope. And it's when I was actually debt collecting for a drug dealer when I was 15 that we had to collect this money off a group of unruly skagheads, to be fair. And when we basically said, look, there's too many of them, we can't do it, the guy who we were working for turned up, jumped out of his car, and did some proper ninja stuff and just beat these guys to pulps. And I thought, where the hell did this bloke learn this stuff? Turns out he did 10 years in the Royal Marines. And that was what planted the first sort of seed in my head that I needed to, change what I was becoming. And make no bones about it, if I hadn't have made that conscious decision when I was 15 and a half to change my life, I would have been in prison. That's, without no bullshit. So I come from a council estate in Bristol, and things weren't great growing up. But then I did change my life when I joined the Royal Marines. Now, I joined at 16 years old, and I was already quite physically fit. I'd boxed since I was 12 years old. I played football, I played rugby, so I was quite active. Now, the things I really found quite difficult in training were the things that probably most of us take for granted now, which were ironing my clothes. I'd never done it before. My mum had done it all for me. Looking after myself, learning to shave properly, making sure my uniforms were just so. But I loved it. I absolutely loved the challenge. There was people from all over the world, because we recruit from all over the Commonwealth in the Marines. There was Kiwis, Canadians, even Africans as well. So this massive collection of people all coming to achieve the same goal, which is to earn your green beret. So I did that, and that fresh-faced young man there, that was probably nearly 20 years ago now. So in 2000, I passed out as a Royal Marines Commando. And just so happened that the world sort of went to shit, shall we say, at 9/11. I remember exactly where I was on that day. I was on a training exercise in Cyprus, and I was actually stood next to the bar, next to a pool in Cyprus. And I remember watching the planes go into the Twin Towers on the news, and I thought, wow, what a realistic, real good film this looks like. But obviously, as we all know now, that was actually what was happening. And that single day sort of shaped my whole life, if you like, because the war on terror from there for the next 10, 11 years really ramped up and saw me go all over the world. So the first job I had was in Afghanistan in 2001, and I was very, very lucky to be part of what's now called the Special Forces Support Group, so where we would be directly supporting Special Forces. Now, this was the SAS at the time, where we worked closely with G Squadron, and we were basically their lackeys, if you like. They would go into the villages, do what they were doing, then we'd be cut-offs is what they're called. So when the bad guys would run out, we would take care of them. And for me, this was amazing, because these guys were the rock stars of my world. They were what I looked at, what I aspired to be. And I was barely 18 now, and oh, look at that guy there. And I was like a sponge, soldiering. I mean, I was good at most stuff at school, but I was never excellent at anything. And soldiering is what I was really good at, and something that I just found myself really naturally lending myself to. I sucked everything up like a sponge. So fast forward, probably only a few months now, so it was the 28th of July 2002, where I deployed again with Special Forces out to Afghanistan. I remember that date very clearly because I got married on the 27th. So as you can imagine, I was very, very popular in my household. This was a bit of a different role where we were more embedded with the lads from Paul this time. So Paul is the SBS, so you've got SAS in Hereford, Paul and SBS. So we were in safe houses then. Again, being their lackeys, but being a bit more ingrained with the day-to-day living, and again, learning more and more about what these guys do. And again, being totally in awe of these people. I worked all over the country for Herat, Mazar-e Sharif, Kabul, this obviously means nothing to most of you, but it's all over the place. And what a massive country it is, Afghanistan. Fast forward again, you can see there's a bit of a thing going on here. I sort of become a bit of a war junkie. I absolutely loved it. Now, in 2003 was something completely different to me, because this is what we call conventional warfare, where before, using in the Special Forces world, we were working in very small teams, clandestine, sort of stealthy stuff, and then coming on to Iraq, the invasion in 2003, where you've got massive amounts of people, massive amounts of machinery and equipment, lots and lots of moving parts. But this was when we were fighting a uniformed enemy, if you like, whereas before it was more guerrilla tactics and things like that, where these guys were actually plain sight to see. Now, it was a very successful tour. We actually only had a few casualties. Unfortunately, on the first night, 2 helicopters collided and a few guys were killed from the Marines. But apart from that, we did very, very well. I was now sort of 20 years old, and I was already given my first taste of command at this time. So I was a Lance Corporal, so that was in charge of 4 guys, which is not a lot, but it was something that I cherished. I cherished the responsibility of leading from the front and leading by example. The thing about the Marines is we are very, very small compared to the whole wider military network, if you like, because there are 5,000 all-told Marines, where if you look at the Army, there are 100,000. So these 5,000 Marines are spread between 5 units, if you like. But for actually fighting Marines, you've got 600 per unit, so 40, 42 Commando and 45 Commando, the fighting units. I was with 40 Commando for all these 3 tours, and they were probably the best times of my life. That's when I was really cutting my teeth, learning my trade and applying the skills that I'd learned from the Special Forces world and also from the Green Army, we call them, the Green Role, to then really hone my skills and make sure I was the best soldier I could personally be. Because when you are, as you all know, when you're learning your own trade, you make sure you are as good as you can be. Fast forward again in 2004, this is where I sort of dipped back into the sort of Special Forces world again, where I was at the, a real big responsibility, where I was tasked to go and work directly with the Italian Special Forces in a place called Najaf, which is on the border of Iraq. Now, I was a young Lance Corporal, and I was given this responsibility of being an ambassador for the Corps, where we worked very closely together. I mean, the guys were so hospitable, they wouldn't even let me do watch of an evening. They would be there all night using these optics I'd never even seen, all these laser range finders. It was amazing equipment, and they were really, really good to me. Unfortunately, on that tour, because I spent such a long time away, there was a few of the Italians killed, but by now I was a sniper, so I was being used. They would air bomb and everything. They were pretty good at it. But then when the sandstorms became a bit too much is when they called me in, and I would get my long rifle and deal with them accordingly. I don't want to get too graphic, but you kind of get the picture of what's going on. So throughout all this time, so I was just 21, and I was then selected for promotion to corporal. Now, back in that sort of era, it was pretty much unheard of for anybody of my age to be selected for promotion. So I'd done, not very long in the Corps by now, and I was bullied effectively when I went on my junior command course, it's called, to become a corporal, because the old and bold would go, what have you done? How many years have you been in the Corps? Have you been on ship? Have you been in Norway? Have you done all these things? And I said, well, how many operations have you been on? How many people you killed? It was that sort of matter of fact about it. And it's merit-based promotion. So my reports had echoed the fact that I was ready for promotion. And so when I finally got down to Lympstone, the Commando Training Centre, one of the first jobs you can do is to become an instructor. So this was an eye-opener for me, to be fair. I'd been through training, obviously, and now I was delivering training. And it was as difficult as being on operations, because you have a vested interest in these guys to make sure they are the absolute best they can be. Because if you do not put the effort and time into these people, they will fall along the wayside. And there was no way I was going to put my name to somebody that would then go onto a commander unit, fighting alongside my friends, and them saying, why have you passed out this dickhead? He's not good enough. And there's something I wasn't prepared to do. Now, it's not just all thrashing people up and down hills. There is a lot of theory work to go into this whole training course, and the learning curve is like that. So you have to write the lesson plans, deliver the lessons, reteach the lessons to some people, examine them, and write reports on these guys all the time. After I did my little training job, I then went back to 4-2 Commando then, which is then I was lucky enough to go out to Afghanistan in 2008 to 2009. Now, this is when the dynamics started shifting from more direct firefights into IEDs. IEDs, for people who don't know, is an improvised explosive device. Again, this tour was great for me because I was in command of 10 guys, and we were going about doing our business, and again, I was sort of leading from the front. I would never ask anybody to do something that I haven't done myself. And I did so well on this tour that actually I was asked to be promoted again afterwards, to which I didn't really take too kindly to it because I was in my element, and the further you go up the rank structure, the further back from the front you get. Now, there are two types of Marines, I suppose. We are quite inbred in the sense that we have our own drivers, our own chefs, our own signallers, telecommunications people, and that's great. You can do that. And then there are the other guys who are the door kickers, the guys who like to get in amongst stuff and close it with and kill the enemy. I like to count myself as one of those people. Now, I was very lucky in the fact that I had a 2IC. So a guy, remember, go back to when I was a Lance Corporal, my 2IC was very, very capable. And just to show you the sort of respect and courage that these guys have got for each other, I wouldn't ask them to do anything that I wouldn't do myself, as I keep on saying. Now, I've had 10 guys' lives entrusted to me, okay? So my sole aim for any of my guys is to get them back at least alive. Maybe not necessarily in one piece, but at least to get them back alive. So as I was a sniper, I would manage to go off and do my thing on the rooftops and do my sniping, but then I would hand over that responsibility that was given to me to this guy, Ollie Smith. Now, to show you how much, you can't really comprehend it. I'm given this responsibility and I'm handing that off because I trust this guy with my life. He actually got me out of quite a few scrapes as well. So you've heard me talk about Afghanistan, and I may have skipped through a bit of how things are out there, but I wanted you just to watch this quick video. Now, if you listen quite carefully, you'll be able to hear some rather close bullets trying to hit me in the head. So this will hopefully give you an insight for what I'm talking about.
Right hand corner there, look up. Yeah. Right hand corner there. When I say rapid fire, everyone else get down for back blast. You ready? Right. Go. Rapid fire. No, turn left. See? Don't go left. No, there. In the back, through the gap. Come on, sort it out.
LMG gunner.
Fuck's sake.
LMG.
Right. Watch my splash!
There. LMG down here.
Bloody thing!
Right, over there.
Where Bites is, get down! Straight over.
Then.
Hey, boys, see, split it out, mate.
Watch my splash!
What's this splash?
You'll see, Steve, come here. You'll see it, mate. There's a gap in the back of the wall.
I'm going to test fire.
Right.
Boise.
Right. Watch out, back blast! Steve, by the way, mate.
Yeah. Get down, Boise.
Hit! Right, get down. Hey, coming up. Where are you looking? We've got 12 cent scope.
Look, you've got flags, single little compound outbuilding. Look to your right, you've got white flags. Just above there is a wall break, and it looks like it goes back to another. Yeah, it's gone right in there. White dish dash back, fucking blue rag. Fucking kill them all.
There he is.
Fucking murder, kill him, buddy. Fucking kill him.
Enemy tree line! Rapid fire! Muzzle clearance! Muzzle clearance! Come up, come up, come up! There you go. Up a bit! Down a bit, down a bit! Gun load! Gun load!
Right, enough of that. I mean, it brings back some great memories for me, to be honest with you. Now, I'm just going to pick on a few of you here at random. Don't feel like you have to answer, but I'm just going to give you 2 words to describe what you just seen there. Okay, you young lady there? Scary and loud. Scary and loud. Okay, we'll go for somebody else. I see you running away there. You there, sir? Intense and? Adrenaline fueled, yeah. So the 2 words I would use are effing awesome, okay? I used to live and breathe this stuff. And look at that photo there is taken right bang smack in the middle of a fairly intensive firefight. I am absolutely loving life there. Now, Afghanistan is a fairly good country. Now, we call this is obviously on the tour of 2011, and my unit, 42 Commando, we had a bit of a pasting, to be fair. We call it the Summer of Love, because we received a lot of love from the Taliban. Now, you're carrying huge amounts of kit. The amount of stress you're under, both mentally and physically, in this 50-degree furnace every single day is so, so taxing. Now, this actual photo here was the last photo that was ever taken of me while I was alive and I was a Marine. Now, that becomes more apparent in a second, because I want to talk to you about this day here, August 25th, 2011. Now, on the last 2 tours of Afghanistan I've been on, I was very, very lucky to have the job. It's called Strike Ops. So, in a sense, they were quite safe, rather than just covering the same ground day in, day out, just waiting to be blown up or shot. We were tasked with Strike Ops. So, what that entails is getting a target packed together, flying in, doing the business, and then flying back out. It was very, very simple and quite cool, I suppose. So, on the 23rd of August, we were tasked to go into an IED factory, and apparently this was the hornet's nest. We're basically going to go and kick it and see what happens. So on the 23rd of August, we flew in the middle of the night. I led the patrol in, landed in the helicopters, kicked the front door in. The owner's there. Hey, what's up, guys? Chill out. Like, oh, okay, so this was a nice welcome. Guy invited us in, made us all cups of tea. It was all pretty good. We built defences on the rooftops of the building we were in. And so then that led into the 24th of August. So we do day on, day off patrols. And on the 24th, I was walking around in my pants, having a cup of tea, loving life, and a grenade comes over the wall. Those of you who know what a grenade launcher is, boom, straight over the wall, smashed into the middle of the compound, took out 6 guys. Didn't kill them, but got them hurt enough that they had to be airlifted away by helicopters back to Bastion Hospital. Now, unfortunately, 2 of these guys were the mortar fire controllers. Now, what they do is they call in indirect fire from mortar tubes up to 5 kilometers away, and they can adjust the fire onto any positions. So when they were going, I nabbed the MFC's radio. I've abbreviated it, MFC, the mortar fire controller. I nabbed his radio, ran upstairs, got on top of the rooftop, ditched my sniping for a day, and just become a mortar fire controller. Now, this was pretty much unheard of, but it is supposedly a secondary task of a sniper to call in and adjust indirect fire. And I remember the first round I called in, I literally said, lads, get down, I haven't got a clue where this is going to land. But it was bang on target, and then I had a great day. So that was the 24th out of the way. But it was my turn then to take out a patrol into the local area on the 25th. Now, we had a good day the day previous. The lads were all tired, so I gave them a brief the night before about what we intended to do. We set out at 5 o'clock in the morning, just as the sun was rising, and already it's searing hot. We're walking through this cornfield, and you can feel as soon as the sun crests the horizon in Afghanistan, it's like switching on an oven. It is so, so hot. We then crossed the wall, walking into the middle of the village, and again, as soon as the sun comes up, the villages bustle with life. You know, the farmers are out farming their fields, the kids are out playing, the shops are open. It's a normal Afghan day, if you like. It was then something changed, and we call it atmospherics, and you sort of get an eye for this or an ear for this thing, is where stereotypically, if you can imagine you were you're dressed out in your suit and you walked on into a pub in the middle of the mall, you know, and then the mood changes. You can feel the jukebox stop, everyone turn around and look at you. It's that sort of sinking feeling. You think something bad's going to happen. And with that, the children started running away. Now, even though the Taliban are dickheads, they don't tend to kill children that much. So we knew something that was going to go down, and it's called a combat indicator. Now, you become hyper aware. You're looking for the presence of the abnormal. It was then we were walking up the track, moseying along, minding their own business, when I noticed there was 2 guys hunkered down in the field 200 meters away. And it didn't fit. I didn't know what it was, but it didn't fit. So I followed my eye line. It's probably about as wide as this path, actually. I followed my eye line down, and straight away, I saw it. It was an oil drum filled with explosives, with the worst effort at camouflage I can see when you've ever seen. So I was quite annoyed that it caught me out, to be fair. But in that split second, I mean, we've all heard of the analogy of people saying that time slowed down. Well, we all know that's impossible. But what I think happens is your brain goes so fast with so many thoughts going through your head that it gives you the perception of time slowing down. So in the quarter of a second when I've seen the bomb, I've turned to run, shouted to Luke, shouted run, bang, it's gone off. It sent me like an arrow into the wall the other side. Obviously I was fully dressed in my helmet and body armor, so I hit the wall, and I think that's what broke my neck. So it didn't happen to you guys, cheer up, come on. So I led there in the dust, and it sounds cliche, but the training starts to kick in. So I was led in a snotty heap on my right-hand side, and so I thought, okay, you've been hit, get up. And I couldn't muster the strength to get up. So then I thought, right, okay, let's check yourself over, what you do. So my left leg I could feel down most of the way. I had blood on my hands, but I knew it was intact. Then my right leg was hitched right up underneath me, so I could feel all my right leg. I thought, okay, 2 out of 2, doing well so far. I then reached to my right arm, and I couldn't feel my arm at all. So I'm thinking, oh, balls, where's my arm gone? With that, I could see out the corner of my eye a massive pool of blood forming. So, okay, I thought, right, you've lost your arm, what are you going to do now? So we are trained to ridiculously high standards at trauma management, and so I thought, I've got to stop the bleeding or I'm going to die. So I was reaching in my shoulder pocket, looking for my tourniquet. I was starting to get a bit tired, and it's then when my hand fell inside my neck, and I realized I had bigger problems. I then could hear it going, tss, 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 and I just thought, oh, the bastards have finally got me. So I make no bones about it. I rapped. I gave up. For that split second, I thought, that's it. They finally got me. It was then, maybe only a couple of seconds later, that my pal, Richie Pencock, come running through the dust, got to me, tell me I was going to be all right. I knew he was lying. And just said to me, Case, keep awake, keep awake, keep awake. So he was then packing me full of dressings and stuff like that, trying to stop the bleeding. This wasn't working, so he did what he thought was best. So he stuck his knee into my neck. It probably wasn't great for my broken neck at the time, but he tried to stop the bleeding as best he knows how. I mean, I say we get taught to ridiculously high standards at trauma management. I've never been taught how to stop someone bleeding when their head's hanging off, but he did what he thought was best. So it was then the guys got to me and they got me on the stretcher. And I remember thinking to myself, okay, just stay awake, because if you go to sleep, you are never waking back up. So I thought I was having a proper rave going crazy, but actually I was just slightly shimmying my shoulders, the guys were saying. Then I remember saying to the guys a lot more colourfully this time, where the hell was this helicopter? Because what had happened is I was the commander on the ground, and when the bomb went off, it turned my radio into just basically a bag of springs. It was smashed to pieces. So we couldn't even call for help, so we had to send guys back to the CP we'd just come from to then call for help. So I remember lying there on the grass, and I was thinking, okay, come on, you can do this, you can do this. And I was led on the grass, and I could hear the rotor blades. I thought, thank God, if I get on the helicopter, I'm going to make it. It was then when everything just went black. There's no white light. The ground didn't swallow me up and eat me whole or anything like that. It's the fires of hell. It just, everything went black. It's pretty boring, to be fair. Don't really recommend it. So I was dead. That was it. I was on the, dead as a doornail, led down the ground. The next thing that I sort of remember was seeing something moving. It seemed like it was a mile away. And then I remember thinking to myself, what is that? What is that? And then it zoomed in. And what it was actually Vicky on top of me, my medic, giving me the chest compressions. And the guys getting around me, and I was back in the room. And I mean, I wasn't like awake. I was fully awake, like I'd just done a ton of Red Bull. I was absolutely 100% back in the room. And I then started feeling myself fading again. And then Richie was slapping me across the face, saying, think of Tessa, think of your children, come on, stay awake. And I knew it was getting pretty bad now, but I knew if I got on that helicopter that I'd be in the hands of professionals and not Richie Pencott trying to cuff it as best he could. So the next thing, I can remember the hot jets of the exhausted Chinook landed behind me. I was saying, come on, just a bit longer, a bit longer. I remember going onto the helicopter and seeing a guy in a flight helmet, and I thought he stuck a hose pipe down my neck, and it was just a little airway like that big, but I was pretty much out of it. And then everything went black again. Now, the next part of the story comes from the rest of the lads who were on the helicopter with me, because there was actually 6 of us involved in the blast. It was a fairly big bomb, but I took the brunt of it, if you like. So I was led there. Luke was next to me. He also got it quite bad. He looked like he'd been peeled, apparently. And I was dead again. So, as I said, I'm in the hands of professionals now. So they got the old heart start on me, give me zip, zip, give me a bit of a zap, a few litres of blood, back in. Next thing I knew, I woke up in Birmingham 2 days later. So that was it. That's what dying was like. Wasn't very interesting. I don't recommend it, but, we do what we can. So these were the injuries I had on the day. So I'm deaf in my left ear, and now can't hardly see at all at my left eye. I severed my carotid artery. Any medical people amongst you, I had a 95% severance on my carotid artery, which is the British record to survive. I still need to find out if it's a world record. I broke my neck at the C3 vertebrae, which was quite funny, actually. The doctors are very clever people, aren't they? So when he came in to see me in the intensive care unit, he said, look, Mr. Weiss, you've broken your neck at C3, which means you're paralyzed from the waist down. We don't know if it's permanent. I went, don't think so, mate. He went, walked off. You never seen someone so clever look so stupid. So part of my biggest issue was my brain damage. Now, my left, because I had no blood going to my brain for, basically 30 minutes, my left frontal lobe died, if you like, and you can't replace brain cells. So from that came a whole lot of issues that we'll go on to in a minute. But I severed the nerves in my left leg, obviously for the shrapnel that smashed me to pieces. Paralyzed, it's actually paresis, it's called now, in my right arm. Still doesn't work that great now. And I had 400 pieces of shrapnel removed, and I had to have 14 litres of blood. Now, we live and die by quite a dark humour in the military, especially in the Marines. Now, there was other lads on the helicopter, as I said, and they actually crated me, which means I had to buy a crate of beer because I was being Jack, they call it, so being out of order, because I had all the blood and there was none left, so I had to buy a crate of beer for that. And that was me. Probably about a week later. I had to have a lot of surgeries in and out. There's a nice little tube in my chest there. That was fun taking out. Now, there is going to be a couple of graphic images now, so if you are squeamish, you might want to look away. Covered up my manhood there, well done. Okay, so that's my neck. So they actually did quite a good job now. You can hardly see it. So that's me with my head was basically ripped off. Now, this one is pretty bad. So if you look in the middle there, is there a laser working on here? No. Okay, you can just see there's my carotid artery. It's hanging on by a thread, and that's where I was losing all the blood from. And that was my sort of main injury. If you look right to the right-hand side, that's my earlobe, and then it's a foot long. It goes all the way down here. So not the best day in the office, I'm not going to lie. That's a few of the CT scans, a bit of shrapnel stuck in my leg, bits of nails all stuck in me. Yeah, it was pretty bad. But a week later, I looked like that. Now I was on the mend. And I genuinely thought this time that I was going to keep my job. I was going to be all right, I was going to bounce back and then crack on. Now, recovery and rehabilitation. Now, if anybody's had any sort of injury, sports injury or whatever injury, it's 2 steps forward and 1 step back, and it is monotonous. And so I spent a lot of my time in the first few weeks was just learning to talk again because of the brain damage, I couldn't speak for 4 months or so. And that was really frustrating because you're trying to communicate to doctors about what's hurting, what you're feeling like, and when you can't speak. And then, because my right hand was absolutely knackered, I had to write with my left hand as well. So this is all becoming a bit of a ball ache, as you can imagine. But the sort of light in the tunnel was that I was on the ground with my lads. I was in hospital with my lads. I was in rehab with my lads. So it all became bearable. And it's then when I got introduced to adaptive sports. I remember it came to a point where I sort of had an inkling that I wasn't going to be a Marine anymore. And I didn't take it very well. Obviously, I'm a self-certified doctor, so I prescribed just a 2-month bender of hating everybody and getting so pissed. It was unbelievable. Hating on everybody around me. I went into a massive, massive mental health spiral. And so my sergeant major said to me, he said, you've got 2 options. You go down to Sainsbury's and collect money for injured troops, or you can go and do an adaptive sports trip. Now, all I heard was 2 weeks on the piss in Colorado, because that's where the Warrior Games was. So I went out to do the Warrior Games, and it's there where I met people who were a lot worse off than me. I mean, one of my friends is a triple amputee, double above knees, and I'm thinking, what the hell are you moaning about? And I'm seeing these guys thrive in a sporting environment. And that was a catalyst. It just really changed my whole perception about who I was and what I was going to achieve in my second life, if you like. I competed in a number of games I'd never even heard of. That's sitting volleyball. Looks very tame, mega, mega aggressive. Then I got, okay, so what can my new body do for me? So being a sniper before, I thought I'd lend myself to shooting. So I got involved with shooting, and it was then I managed to cuff it, and I managed to be selected for the Great Britain squad to shoot in the 2014 World Cup, where I placed 17th for my first ever event, and last ever, because it was just really a ball ache getting to and from Aylesbury all the time. But it was then when I tried to do new stuff all the time. I was thinking, right, where else can I push this new body to? And all the time, I'm trying to rehab my hand, my leg was smashed to pieces, my brain still wasn't really functioning as it should do, so I was managing my life pretty well. Now, I hadn't been on a bike at all since my injury. So obviously a triathlon, some of that is supposed to be cycling. There's one in every town, okay? So in Exeter, there is a roundabout you don't go near. In every town there's got one. A rush hour, you don't go near the place. This is called Countess Weir in Exeter. Obviously, I went there at rush hour and fell off my bike. Actually nearly got ran over by a woman in a white Astra because I'd never been on a bike before, and I realized my balance was completely gone because of my head injury. Again, adaptive swimming. I mean, they used to call me the Rock, good for a wrestler, not much for a swimmer, because I couldn't move my right arm, and my left leg was absolutely just trashed. I couldn't even swim, but I give it a go. And obviously rowing with one hand became a bit of a nightmare as well. But it's then when I come onto the Invictus Games in 2014. Now, in Colorado, in the year previous, when I first met Harry, and he said, we need to do this bigger and better back home in the UK. Now, being the other pessimist and knowing how military things work, I thought it would just be a few 9x9 tents on an RAF camp. But what they actually pulled off was a magnificent event, and we took over the Olympic Park, and it was one of the highlights of my life. Now, I competed in the archery and cycling. Now, as I said, it's adaptive sports. Now, obviously, I couldn't use my hand anymore. I didn't have the strength to pull back the bowstring, so it's not the first time I've been shooting off with my mouth, so it came quite naturally to me. I actually lost I got through the group stage and then lost to the actual guy who won the gold medal. So I sort of take that as a silver, but no one else really went with it. So again, adaptive cycling. We've already realized that I can't actually ride a bike anymore. So I got one of these bad boys. Now, they are seriously, seriously quick, these trikes. And me, JJ, and Rob there at the back, we worked together as a team using a peloton method, and then absolutely smashed the United States. And we decided to cross the line together as a team because that's how we worked the whole way through. So I got my gold medal there from the Invictus Games, the first one. And look at that. Look how happy I was. That's the guy who was contemplating seriously ending it only 12 months before. And I'm down with the kids now. That's the biggest selfie I've ever seen. There's 26,000 people there in Hyde Park. So I thought, what now? I've got this new lease of life. What can I do? I need to spread this message about getting off your ass and doing something with your life. So I've done lots of work for charities, I've skydived, I've cycled hundreds and hundreds of miles, I've met business owners, and I sort of thought, right, I've got a lot to offer now. I didn't realize the transferable skills I had because I'd lost my purpose, I'd lost my why, and I didn't know where I was going. As a little caveat, towards the end of my career, I was offered, well, I wasn't offered, I was awarded the Military Cross for Gallantry in services to Afghanistan. Now, first thing I said when I found out about this was, it's not a sympathy vote, is it? Because if it is, you can ram it. I'm not interested. But it was actually for actions before the actual incident on the day. So that was my nice way of sort of ending my career. And it's always nice to see the Queen, isn't it? I then become heavily involved with BT and rugby, where I then walked on to numerous sports events. I even had a go at Formula 1 driving. Turns out I wasn't quite cut out for it, but we'll come back to racing in a little minute. As I said, all this is going on. My life's pretty cool, but I was living in agony all the time, and I was in and out of a wheelchair. I was having limb salvage surgery all the time on this pesky left leg. Now, the last surgery I had before the amputation was this revolutionary new surgery that was going to save my leg. It was awful. It absolutely catastrophic fail, which sort of took the option out of my hands to have my leg amputated. And it was just another thing to me. I'd seen guys come through Headley Court, which is the Defence Medical Rehabilitation Centre. They would smash it in a few weeks, get up and away. So I wrote myself a little letter on my leg. It says, "Dear leg, thanks for all the misery and admin you have caused over the last 3 years. I hope that incinerator is hotter than hell itself. Later, you bastard." And that was it. A couple of hours later, I looked like that. And then like that. So this was just another challenge, and because of my whole new mindset I had, and it was bred into me from the Marines from the start. You are the best in the world. You are what you do, and you make your goals and you stick to them. So I had 3 goals. I wanted to be walking by, so this was in November. So I wanted to be walking by Christmas. I wanted to be taking part in a sporting event in California in March, and I wanted to play football by the end of the season in May. So that was 6 weeks later, my first sort of day up on my leg, and I just felt really tall because I've been in a wheelchair for so long. It was an amazing feeling. I'm 5'9.5", so that felt really good. Christmas in New York. If anyone's ever been to New York, it's a lot of walk, especially if you go with your lady friend. They like the shops. I then came on to the Wounded Warrior Regiment, which is Help for Heroes equivalent in the United States, where I took part in, again, an adaptive sport event, where I took part in the shooting, sitting volleyball again, and swimming, and also the track sprint. So, silver medal at the track there, and that was against a very, very quick Colombian. But again, I've achieved my goal, and I just thought, to be fair, it's quite easy. I didn't know if I was pushing myself hard enough. And then, losing the leg actually balanced me out a little bit, so I could actually swim a bit better now, and actually won a gold medal in swimming, which is, I don't know, I still cuffed it. And that was my medal haul from the Warrior Games, so the Warrior Trials. And then that was me on Dartmoor, Oakhampton, it was the place on the edge of Dartmoor. Being the wrong side of 30, having one leg, putting me on as wing back was a bit out of order, but I did quite well actually, and I've just finished my last season of football now. I've given it up now as top scorer for my local team, Tedburn, so you can always achieve what you want to. Go back to the triathlon now. So I've revisited what my body can do. I know its limitations. I know what it's capable of now. So there, I can run a bit. I can cycle now with my new bike. I can swim, and then I end up winning the triathlon at my second go. I then come on to the 2015 Warrior Games, is where again I was going to push my new body to see where it could go, and I took part in a number of events again, and again I came away with quite a good medal haul there. The key thing about that was sitting volleyball. If you've got a team of people who can't play it, it becomes really difficult, and I've soon realised that I'm not such a team player anymore when it comes to sports. But again, the medal haul is growing, and so my packing list is getting different as well. Now, Kilimanjaro was a complete accident, to be fair. A friend of mine runs an expedition company, and he said, "Have you heard there's a world record for the fastest ascent of Kilimanjaro post-amputation is 14 months. I was 10 months amputation by now, so I thought, let's go. So it was a bit of a trek, but yeah, I mean, it went up this mountain in 6 days. And one of the best things that to me was I did it with that girl there. And that's Tess, my wife. Now, all through all this, she has stood by me like a rock. And the guys get medals for their services and going away on operations, but these guys don't get any recognition whatsoever. And I guarantee you now, if it wasn't for the people and the support network behind me especially, I wouldn't be here now. I'd be down in a ditch. And what a cool way to sort of finish, that year with being on the roof of Africa with my best mate and my wife. Same person, by the way. I just thought you get that. And I thought, okay, right, so what else are we going to do? Now, I got involved in sport relief, and as I said, I've been working very closely with the Royal Foundation and the Invictus Games. I'm not saying me and Harry are mates at all, but I did go to the wedding and stuff like that, and I've been trying to promote this sense of just because you're broken, you're not down, you're not out, you can always achieve more. I ended up running a lot of team building events, and so I started doing this job, if you like, professionally, public speaking, where I was spreading this message. But I stopped it about 18 months ago because I felt like a bit of a fraud, because I'm telling people to get off their ass and do stuff when I wasn't comfortable in my own skin. So I felt like a fraud. So I thought, how the hell can I stand in front of people and tell them to be more than they are right now when I was struggling in my own skin? So we come on to the Invictus game in 2016. Now this was, I was now a new amputee, if you like. So before I had 2 legs, and I had 1 leg. So my packing list, as I said, it's changed a little bit. So I took all my spare legs, and I pretty much smashed this. I came home the most successful athlete of the games, and I just couldn't believe it. Now, the one in the middle there was a bronze medal. Now, that is the one that's the most important to me, because that's for the 4x100 meter sprint relay. And I couldn't even walk 100 meters 2 years before at the Invictus Games in London. And to me, that was very, very special. What's that all about, you say? Okay, so my plan, and I've always got a plan, was to finish the 16 games, and then 17 was the Toronto Games. Now, I was a new amputee in 16, so I wanted to be a fully fledged amputee, if you like, in the 17 games and absolutely smash the competition out of the water. Now, what happened was, I did it at the trials. I smashed everybody so badly that I didn't get selected for the games, and I didn't have a backup plan. So Dr. Weiss prescribed himself another bender, so I just went totally down a mental health spiral. Drink was horrendous. And it was just by pure luck that I was asked to go and participate against 90 other guys who were invited for an open day. I didn't know exactly what it entailed, but for a potential drive with Jaguar. I didn't know what it meant. So this was the start of last year, where I became my other job was I'm a racing driver. So I drive for Jaguar and the Invictus Games racing team. And that is pretty much what I actually had a bit of a car crash yesterday. Some of you guys, the organisers, will know I pretty much wasn't coming until I got out of hospital at 10 o'clock last night because I've sort of smashed my sternum to pieces. So it turns out 122 miles an hour and concrete don't mix. So that car is a beautiful car. It does not look like that anymore. The front half is completely missing and sort of 8 inches off to the side. So that's what I sort of do in my spare time as well. But all the while as well, I've been trying to build this brand here. Now, I don't want to do too much of a sales pitch to you. That's not what I'm here to do. But I've taken all the experiences that I've had collectively over my 16 years in the military and my few years as a civilian now, and I'm just trying to tell people that anything is possible. Now, the 2 co-founders, I'm not a co-founder of Employable, the 2 co-founders are ex-Marines as well, and one was homeless and one was unemployed for a long time. I've had my own issues of why I've not been employed, just because I think a lot of people just lose their purpose, lose their identity, and don't know how to fix it. Now, I'm not saying this is the fix to any of that at all, but it's a help. Now, we are trying to create an environment here where there's a lot of recruitment guys in the room, where we want people to have jobs. One, because it's an ethical sense of doing good, but also it makes us a bit of cash, which is all good, isn't it? So I'm not going to bang on too much about Employable. Please, if you want to come and see us over at the stand, I think it's actually packed up, but you can email us. But I'd like to put that slide up last. Now, I've had an amazing time, and I'm not finished yet. And I never forget where I came from, because even though I've done quite well in business, I've excelled in sports, and I race supercars, it's all great. But I never forget where I came from. I was a 16-year-old scrote bag from a council estate in Bristol, and I'll never, ever forget that. I can't give you any pearls of wisdom because I'm still learning myself. Just stay grounded and don't be afraid to fail. Failure is the only route to success. If you're just succeeding and succeeding, your dreams aren't big enough. I'm not going to preach too much, but thanks very much for listening to me. Any questions?